As we begin to speak about financial services in the cloud, we'll be talking today about these four things. We'll lead off with some global industry observations and trends. Second, we'll speak about how financial services customers are using AWS today to empower their businesses. Third, we'll address where AWS is helping financial institutions today, what we're doing in regards to helping those firms. And then lastly, we'll talk about the specific resources that AWS has on hand both worldwide as well as regionally and locally to help financial institutions with their adoption of the cloud. So that said, let's jump right into some of the global industry observations and trends that we're seeing based on our interactions with financial services customers both worldwide as well as in the APAC region. So broadly speaking, based on the conversations that we have with our financial services customers, we are seeing these 5 trends emerging around the world. First and foremost, we are in a time of strained global economic conditions worldwide. Second, we are seeing that there is a massive amount of data that is being generated and stored not only by financial institutions but by other enterprises and other industries worldwide. And there is a desire on the part of financial institutions to be able to mine this data, whether it's for regulatory compliance purposes or for competitive advantage and a desire to mine that data for insights and information to drive economic advantage. Third, I think we can all appreciate that we operate in a complex regulatory compliance landscape. Specifically, in regions of the world like Asia Pacific as well as EMEA, these regulatory landscapes are more complicated than in other jurisdictions due to the large and diverse number of countries that financial institutions have to consider when doing business in these geographic regions. Fourth, we are facing as an industry and as a global economy sophisticated security threat actors, more sophisticated than any other time in the world today. Cybersecurity is a top concern for financial institutions around the world. And then lastly, the industry itself, the market, is evolving rapidly. That's due to a number of factors. First and foremost, the rise and advent of fintech in the marketplace. And then second, and most importantly, changing customer expectations. Today, more than any other time in the history of the financial services industry, customers have more choice than ever before, and they are expecting to have enriched customer experiences when interacting with not only their financial life, but all aspects of their life. So one of the things that we like to talk about internally a lot and we speak to our customers about on a frequent basis is what keeps financial services leaders up at night in 2016 and as they look to the future in 2017 and beyond. One thing that we hear very often from our financial services customers in regards to what is top of mind for them is first and foremost differentiating themselves from their competitors. Whether that means new entrants into the market space like fintech competitors or traditional competitors in the space who are beginning to innovate themselves in relation to the offerings that they're bringing to market for the benefit of consumers. It's whether or not to partner with fintech. There are many in the industry who view fintech as a disruption, as a threat, and there are many more who are beginning to view fintech as an opportunity to embrace new transformational technologies and to open up new marketplaces. And in relation to transformational technologies, many organizations are wondering how to embrace them and how to incorporate them into their existing business plans. These include artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT, as well as distributed ledger and blockchain, which of course no financial services webinar or presentation would be complete without, based on the popularity of that topic. Second, financial institutions, specifically retail-facing financial institutions today, are micro-focused on improving and enriching customer experiences. As I mentioned, through the conversations that we have with our customers today, specifically those retail-facing organizations, we understand that there is an extreme focus on making sure that the customer experience is frictionless and that it's enriched, and that customers and consumers can consume and interact with their financial life much like they interact with other aspects of their life. So traditionally, that's meaning a digital channel of some sort in regards to how they consume information. Speaking of channels, it's no longer satisfactory or par, if you will, to be omni-channel. In fact, to compete in today's marketplace, you need to be omni-channel when considering how to reach your customers. Third, we are seeing that our financial services customers are very focused on optimizing their operations. This is due to the global economic conditions that we mentioned and the fact that top-line revenues are either flat or slightly declining, and that the only way to improve margins is to take cost out of the business. If you look at the broad landscape of the industry globally, you will find that the majority of large financial institutions, systemically important financial institutions, if you will, if that acronym makes sense to you, are engaged in large-scale cost-saving initiatives. And AWS is helping those organizations to reduce overall cost and to improve their margins in light of these strained economic conditions. Fourth, managing risk is at the forefront of all of our customers' minds in the financial industry. When you look at popular workloads or the most popular use case within financial services today for cloud, data analytics, and specifically in the realm of managing risk in its many different facets, whether that's stress testing or other types of risk analysis or surveillance for fraud or detection of any other types of risks or anti-money laundering compliance or know your customer, these workloads lend themselves well to high-performance computing as well as the analytical power that you can harness from the cloud and AWS. In a nutshell, what we've been talking about for the last couple of minutes is the fact that really the world doesn't work the same way it used to anymore. You can look at the statistics on the screen in front of you to understand that in a very succinct manner. On the left, you can see that the average lifespan of an S&P 500 company has dropped from 67 years in the 1920s to just 15 years today. Today, more than 2/3 of IT budgets are going towards business as usual or keeping the lights on. This is reflected in what we talked about in relation to the rising costs of compliance, as well as the stagnation or the declination of top-line revenues. And then lastly, 77% of CEOs, more than 3/4, believe that security risks have increased in the last few years and that risk management capabilities are falling behind based on new and emerging regulatory requirements as well as new and emerging threats. When you consider from the standpoint of a retail-facing organization, and specifically retail banking, we are witnessing today the unbundling of the banks that have been built over the last 10 to 20 years. And FinTech is a big part of that. This illustration shows how a large retail organization like Wells Fargo in this particular example could be unbundled by a large number of FinTech firms forming an ecosystem. This is simply an illustration of what the marketplace looks like today, the challenges facing large financial institutions, and the opportunities that are in front of small, nimble FinTech companies who are looking to fundamentally change the way that financial consumers interact with their financial life. So how are financial services customers using AWS today? And specifically, how are some of those new FinTech companies using our technologies to break into these business lines, and how are traditional firms using our technologies to reinvent themselves? Let's jump into a little bit of that. When we talk about this topic, it's really a topic of cloud adoption. And when we talk about cloud adoption, this particular quote from the president of a global financial information and services company headquartered in London, I think really sums the current situation up perfectly. I had the opportunity to sit with this gentleman in his offices in London about 2.5 months ago. In the course of that conversation, we were talking about his customer base and they're changing requirements and asks in relation to where this service provider deploys their applications. And ultimately, the conversation moved to this particular quote. And the president of this organization told us that, in a sense, I have to move to AWS because all of my customers are moving there as well. And if I'm going to continue to be a provider of financial services solutions to the industry, I have to be where my customers are. And they're coming to the cloud, they're coming to AWS. Today, AWS is helping financial institutions around the world, including in the APAC region, to do two things primarily. Number one, we're helping them transform legacy IT infrastructure and to make a deliberate journey to the cloud. And second, we're helping them bring new innovative ideas to market faster. We don't always get to talk openly about these customers by name due to the sensitivity and confidentiality requirements that these customers have in relation to their businesses, whether that's from a security perspective and the way that they address their internal security operations, or secondly, it may be due to competitive purposes. We do have customers who do not disclose their use of AWS because they do not want to disclose to their competitors what they consider to be a competitive advantage. The organizations that you see listed on the slide in front of you is a small sampling of global customers in the financial services industry that permit us to speak about their use cases in varying degrees of depth and breadth, and we thank them for their willingness to allow us to speak about them. What you see in front of you on this slide is again, sampling, representation of financial services institutions in the Asia-Pacific region that allow us to speak about their use of AWS in varying degrees of depth and breadth. We're very pleased to have organizations like Westpac, the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, National Australia Bank, and Suncorp and DBS that allow us to speak about their use specifically in Singapore, in Australia, as well as Murray Asset and Global Investments in Korea, and then innovative fintech companies like 8 Securities and MeBank. AWS is very pleased to be working with these leading financial institutions in the Asia-Pacific region. Asia-Pacific is an important region for AWS in the financial services industry, and we have customers across Asia from fintech to large banks, insurance and capital markets firms who are working with us to transform their businesses today. And we'll talk a little bit more about those in the rest of the presentation. So the third most cited question that we get in financial services is how are financial services institutions using AWS? The first two questions, if you're wondering what those were, are tell me about security and how I address my security requirements, and second, how do I address my regulatory obligations? We'll speak a little bit about those a little bit further on in this presentation, and then later on today there will be 2 follow-up presentations, one being on running mission-critical applications for financial services institutions on AWS, and the second is a deeper dive into security for financial services on AWS. So hopefully during the course of these 3 presentations around financial services for Webinar Week, you'll get a deeper understanding of exactly how we handle the first 2 questions. But specifically, I'd like to talk about how financial services customers are using AWS today. What are some of the common workloads, some of the common patterns for adoption, so that you can begin to think about how you may want to shape your cloud journey. A very common early adoption pattern of our financial services customers is to begin to move development and test environments to the cloud, much like MeBank started with. This is a very easy way for organizations to put their foot into the cloud, if you will, without placing mission-critical workloads, number one, or what can be considered as sensitive data. That can be personally identifying information or other types of sensitive information that are important to the institution. Second, we see a lot of our financial institution customers begin to look at how they build net new applications to the organization, meaning I want to build a new application that's going to accomplish mobile banking, or I want to build a new analytics platform. And when I do that, I'm going to create a new set of policies and procedures and governance that allow my development teams to embrace new technologies. And you almost create either a new organization within your bank, a broker-dealer, or financial institution that allows operations that are different than what has traditionally been done from a governance and operational policy perspective, or you allow a subset of your organization to create net new things as an innovation lab. This is something that is done by leading institutions around the world, including the Singapore Stock Exchange. You can see here that they created a new mobile application that offered access to live market data news and company announcements to their public customers. Third, as I mentioned earlier, analytics, and specifically data analytics around surveillance, as well as customer profitability and other types of high-performance computing modules are the most popular workload in financial services today on the cloud. Scaling analytics, and specifically around statistical modeling for backtesting and things of that nature, is a very common way for organizations to increase their use of cloud. We have significant organizations around the world who are using AWS for such things as CCAR and other stress testing scenarios, as well as anti-money laundering, know your customer, and customer profitability modeling. Similar to that, HPC, or high-performance computing workloads, specifically in the capital markets market segment for risk management, as well as Monte Carlo analysis, are popular as well. The last two types of workloads that we see as a pattern are migrating existing applications to AWS, so taking part in an IT transformation journey, if you will, a very deliberate approach to migration, as well as, again, becoming cloud first and deciding to move net new applications to the cloud. Great examples of these are, number one, Suncorp in Australia, who in 2013 began their journey to move all in to AWS, moving all their applications out of data centers owned or operated by Suncorp, as well as DBS in Singapore. DBS recently announced that they intend to move at least 50% of their applications to AWS within the next 24 months. They began the migration of those applications with their treasury and markets high performance for financial instruments pricing and risk management application. As we talk about how our financial services customers are adopting the cloud, it sometimes helps to speak about that adoption in the forms of paths or patterns of adoption. The first path of adoption that we're seeing is what we like to call an opportunistic approach. When you think about this opportunistic approach, it's best to think about this as an organization saying, I have a specific need, or I have these 3 specific needs, or a set of specific needs that I need to accomplish in a very specific period of time. Whether that's the financial institution acquiring a business that was built on the cloud and operates on the cloud in production, or the financial institution is looking to address a specific need to address a regulatory requirement that requires massive amounts of compute power that it doesn't have access to on premises, or whether it's an opportunity for a financial institution to close a data center or to cancel the lease of a data center. These are examples of an opportunistic approach to cloud adoption. You're not necessarily setting a target goal in this particular path of moving all into the cloud or moving a certain percentage of your workloads over a period of time. You're merely taking advantage of the scale and the cost benefits of cloud to solve specific business problems. Second is a more deliberate approach, the cloud first or all-in journey that many of our customers around the world are beginning to take. This is typically a journey that traditional or established enterprises take rather than the net new fintech and born in the cloud type organizations. As these organizations begin to contemplate how to transform legacy IT environments that can support as many as 2,000 to sometimes 6,000 unique applications, it takes a very deliberate and planned approach and an execution strategy to migrate these applications to either a hybrid environment or to an all-in-the-cloud environment over a specific period of time, which could be anywhere from 3 to 7 years in some cases, depending upon the complexity of the plan. Lastly, we have what we call cloud native and fintech. These are organizations that have built net new businesses, net new applications, net new opportunities to open markets using the latest technology available to them, which is cloud. And the analogy that I like to use quite often with our customers when we talk about this is if you were beginning to build a house today or beginning to build a building or a lodging, the first thing you would not do is to go and procure an axe and begin to chop down trees to build a cabin like you would in the 1600s or the 1700s to build a house or a lodging. Today you would engage with a general contractor and you would work with that person to use the latest and greatest technologies in home building, pre-manufactured pieces of building materials to very quickly build a house that meets standards for building. And so that's a great example of how organizations, as you build net new things, take advantage of the latest and greatest technologies rather than going back to things that can be considered legacy. When you consider these paths of adoptions and are looking for specific examples around the opportunistic approach, or the onesie-twosie, if you will, these are some sample use cases that we can talk about that, if actually strung together, could begin to form the basis of an IT transformational or a more deliberate journey to the cloud. As we mentioned, dev and test is a very popular beginning workload. Based on the fact that it does not necessarily include sensitive customer information or other types of proprietary information. Analytics workloads, whether that's for customer profitability, marketing purposes, or back testing of investment models. Risk management and high-performance computing are other examples. Blockchain is a very popular use case for the cloud today. Blockchain and other distributed ledger technology solutions take and require a large amount of computing capacity, and the scalability of cloud as well as the cost effectiveness of cloud lend itself well to these particular use cases. A great example of that is NASDAQ. NASDAQ, in partnership with Chain, have launched in production their NASDAQ private market solution called Link. This is a solution that takes advantage of cloud and the scalability that it offers, specifically on AWS. We're also seeing core systems migrated to AWS on behalf of banking customers as well as trading customers and insurance customers, whether that's the customer itself, the financial institution, moving the application on its own, or whether it's in partnership with financial institutions asking their solution providers today to move core systems to a cloud deployment. In fact, we are engaged with a large number of these providers today in doing so on behalf of our joint customers. Oh, let me go back. I didn't quite finish there. Another use case that's very popular today is IoT, and specifically in the IoT space, a lot of our financial services customers are working with the Amazon Alexa engine, or as you may know it, the Amazon Echo device. If you're not familiar with the Amazon Echo is a device that can be purchased from Amazon.com, our parent company, and this sits in your home or in your office and allows you to interact with cloud technology that provides information. Specifically in the financial services space, we're seeing organizations that are specifically retail-facing, like Fidelity Investments or Capital One or other financial institutions, build Alexa voice skills that allow you to interact with your financial accounts. In the case of Fidelity Investments, Fidelity has an Alexa skill set that allows Alexa users to ask for quotes on specific stocks. You can say, Alexa, where did Amazon close today? Or Alexa, how did the market do today? In relation to banking, Capital One has built an Amazon Alexa skill set that allows its customers, like myself, to check their bank balance or to ask when their next credit card payment is due, and to actually set and schedule a payment for a credit card or for a mortgage or for another financial obligation. In the realm of disaster recovery, the ISE, the International Securities Exchange, which was recently purchased by NASDAQ this year, in 2015 moved all the disaster recovery for its 3 options exchanges here in the U.S. to AWS. So now, rather than having a co-location facility for DR, if their primary exchange co-location facilities in New Jersey failed during the trading day, the failover in the disaster recovery in BCP happens in Amazon's U.S. West region rather than in a co-location facility somewhere else. These are just a couple of examples of opportunistic of the opportunistic approach to embracing cloud for solving immediate business problems. The second approach, or path of adoption, if you will, is the deliberate approach. This is a planned migration of applications, whether in a hybrid capacity or an all-in approach, to the cloud. Some great examples of organizations that have done this and have publicly disclosed their activities are DBS, as we mentioned. As I said earlier, the bank has planned to move up to 50% of their workloads to AWS by 2018. DBS, as you may know, is the largest bank in Singapore. Suncorp, as I mentioned, is in the process of moving all their applications from their own data centers to AWS. They began that journey in 2013 and continue to execute on their plan today. And then lastly, Capital One, a very vocal proponent of cloud adoption, and specifically AWS, has an aggressive plan to reduce the number of data centers that they operate in from 8 to 3 by 2018, taking full advantage of AWS to power their operations. As you may know, Capital One is the 8th largest bank in the U.S. The third path of adoption is what we call cloud native, and specifically in financial services, it's all about fintech. You can see here on the screen examples of 3 innovative fintech companies that have taken advantage of the scale, the cost effectiveness, and the agility of deploying on the cloud to really become market leaders. In the case of Robinhood, if you're not familiar with the organization, is the fastest growing U.S. brokerage in history. Robinhood launched in the U.S. and then quickly expanded to Australia as well as China. When Robinhood launched their iPhone application, which is, by the way, the only way that you can access the application for trading, either through the iPhone or through Android, it had 1 million customers signed up on a waiting list to be able to access the application. Robinhood built an entire broker-dealer that met U.S. regulatory requirements and then subsequently Australian and Chinese requirements with 2 DevOps people. Rather than hiring a large development team, they were able to build this complete broker-dealer with just 2 DevOps people. Lindo, founded and started in the Philippines and now expanded globally, is an example of an organization that is using social and online behavior for credit scoring and verification. And then Monzo is an example of a UK challenger bank that is a mobile-first bank with a very unique twist. They have a cloud-based core banking solution. We're seeing, as a global trend, a large number of financial institutions, again, ask their providers to move core banking solutions, industry-leading core banking solutions, to the cloud for cloud deployment. And we're also seeing net new actors in the space either build their own core banking applications and systems using microservices, or you've got net new providers who are coming into the market and saying, I can reinvent how core banking or core trading or core insurance platforms should work by taking advantage of cloud technologies. Again, building net new applications using the latest technologies available rather than legacy. Let's take a moment to talk about where AWS is helping financial institutions solve business challenges today. What you see on the screen in front of you is a sample breakdown of the financial services industry. On the left, you can see retail and commercial banking. To its right, wealth management and private banking. and moving further to the right, capital markets and investment banking, as well as insurance. This is a simple way to depict the different market segments of the financial industry. Below that, you can see on the horizontal different types of use cases, whether that's basic infrastructure on the bottom and moving up the stack to HPC and core workloads, as well as analytics and digital workloads on the top. When you take these as sample use cases, we can begin to dive a little bit deeper into how we're addressing some of those kind of global trends that we identified earlier. First and foremost, we can talk about how we're helping our customers to enrich their end client's customer experience. The workloads that you see here shaded in blue are sample workloads and use cases that are running in production on AWS today for the benefit of our customers and their end clients. Capital One was very vocal last year at our reInvent conference, and this particular conference is actually coming up here in the US at the end of November. If you'd like to attend, Capital One was very vocal about the fact that they had built their net new mobile banking application for their customers on AWS. You can look at a number of robo-advisors that are popular in the States today as well as abroad, who were built on AWS, including Betterment and others. It's another fantastic use case of broker-dealers and wealth management firms built completely on the cloud, as well as in the capital market space, mobile trading, online trading, sentiment analysis, as well as digital marketing. In the insurance space, we are seeing, again, customer analytics specifically in the actuarial calculation space as well. In relation to optimizing operations, as we mentioned, optimizing operations is a key concern of financial institutions today. You can see here how we are helping our financial institutions' customers do exactly that. Moving dev and test environments to AWS as well as DR helps reduce cost, as these particular workloads and use cases can be scaled appropriately and take advantage of cost savings there, as well as storage and data warehousing at a much greatly reduced cost. And then moving up the stack into the HPC and core workload systems, we mentioned earlier that core systems are rapidly migrating to AWS across all different market segments, insurance, capital markets, and banking, as well as being able to help our customers reduce their cost and their time to market on risk calculations such as CCAR or MiFID II or Basel calculations, as well as other types of stress testing and pricing calculations. In relation to managing risk, while I touched on it just a second ago, we're also helping customers with mission-critical and sensitive compliance workloads, including KYC, fraud detection, and anti-money laundering. Specifically in the anti-money laundering space, we are working with NICE Actimize, a leading provider of anti-money laundering solutions, to deploy their suspicious activity monitoring solution on AWS for the benefit of their customers. They have done so in production for a number of customers today. In the fraud detection space, we're working with providers of solutions like Moody's Analytics to provide those workloads in production today. And in relation to stress testing, as I mentioned, we do have a large number of organizations that are taking advantage of our scalable infrastructure to run complex calculations like CCAR calculations. Let's move to talking about some of the resources that AWS provides to help our financial services customers with their adoption. First and foremost, we can start with our global infrastructure footprint. Today, AWS operates 14 geographic regions within the world where we have an infrastructure footprint. Within those 14 geographic locations, we have 38 availability zones. Each availability zone is comprised of 2 or more enterprise-grade data centers. You can see today that we have 14 regions, as I said, and the green circles represent new regions that are coming soon. We have publicly announced that we are opening data center regions in Montreal, in London, as well as an additional data center region in China before the end of 2017. And we've also announced recently that we'll be expanding our data center footprint and region footprint to Paris in 2017. In regards to the services that we offer in those regions, this is a slide that depicts the breadth and depth of our service offerings. Today, AWS offers over 70 different service offerings, from core infrastructure like EC2 or our simple storage service S3, networking and database, up the stack to an application marketplace where our customers can deploy SaaS solutions into their AWS accounts in secure environments with the click of a button. As we help our customers on a deliberate approach to cloud adoption, most often those customers are leveraging our AWS Cloud Adoption Framework. This Cloud Adoption Framework is a core framework for delivering cloud transformation. And when you think about cloud adoption, it's not sufficient to think about cloud adoption as a mere migration of an application from one environment to another. You have to think of this move and this change as exactly that, a change, a major transformation in how IT is supporting its business customers and in how the organization itself conducts its business. In order to help our customers do that, we have an AWS Professional Services team. That particular team has resources based around the world, including in the APAC region, and those teams are constructed of technical specialists who can help in areas such as security, application optimization, as well as areas around analytics, big data, and operational integration. We also offer advisory services around strategy for cloud migration, planning, cost-benefit analysis, including TCO and return on investment, or ROI, governance. The evolution of governance frameworks is really the most asked question from our financial services institutions, and we're very invested in helping our customers evolve those frameworks, as well as risk management and change management in relation to how you implement the AWS platform. We also collaborate with a broad number of GSI, SI, and consulting partners through the Amazon Partner Network. And then we do deploy proven processes that we have learned through our engagements with enterprise customers around the world over the last 10 years. Andy Jassy, our CEO at AWS, has a saying that he likes to employ from time to time that says there is no compression algorithm for experience. And we have taken the experience that we've garnered over the last 10 years of helping customers embrace the cloud, and we have built them into proven processes like the Cloud Adoption Framework to assist our customers with accelerating their adoption. As I mentioned, we have a very expansive financial services ecosystem. As you can see on the left, we have a collection of systems integrators and consultants who have built specific financial services practices to help our customers with their cloud adoption. This, what you see on the left-hand side of the screen, is just a small sampling of organizations that have done that, including large GSIs and consulting firms, as well as boutique born-in-the-cloud consulting firms. On the right-hand side, you can see a sampling of financial services providers who are offering their solutions for deployment on AWS as either SaaS or managed solutions, including IHS Markit, who has moved some of their applications, including Market Enterprise Data Management, or EDM, as well as Market Analytics, Market Thinkfolio, and Market WSO, as well as they're in the process of building net new applications around TCA, blockchain, and other applications. I mentioned Moody's and Actimize earlier as well. And one name you may also recognize is Trading Technologies. Trading Technologies is a Chicago-based firm that is 20 years old with operations around the world. They provide a derivatives trading platform to 19 of the top 20 banks in the world today. Their second-generation trading platform, which is simply called TT, is actually built in a hybrid capacity on AWS. What that means is that the infrastructure required for placing trades on exchanges from a latency perspective, as well as the risk checks required to implement those trades, is co-located by TT in the data centers where the exchanges and market centers that they trade on are located around the world, and then the backbone of the trading system is built on our 14 publicly available regions today around the world as well. So we allow TT and enable them to have a global infrastructure footprint by which they can build truly a hybrid deployment of their trading system for the benefit of their customers. As I mentioned earlier, when we speak about financial services, we are typically asked three questions, and the first two questions deal with security and compliance. There's a misconception that is quickly really fading away that security and compliance are actually different or deprecated when you move to the cloud. In fact, the opposite is true. When you move workloads to the cloud, you actually get a greater degree of visibility into your infrastructure and deep insights with things like Amazon CloudTrail, as well as a much greater degree of granular control over your particular infrastructure and the resources that you're using. You also get a high degree of auditability. AWS maintains a large number of third-party certifications and attestations on the infrastructure that we provide you in order for you to evidence compliance to the regulatory regimes that you have obligations to. In relation to other regulatory compliance resources, AWS does work with our customers to provide them with terms and conditions to support their regulatory requirements in the different jurisdictions that they operate in. This includes the EU model clauses, terms and conditions related to data sovereignty and residency, as well as regional regulatory supervision and reversibility requirements. We also employ personnel and professionals with financial services experience, specifically in the regulatory compliance space. On staff today we have former regulators, former top 5 investment bank compliance officers, financial services information security professionals, as well as financial services governance and audit professionals who are here at AWS to provide our financial services customers with expertise in cloud adoption in making this transformational change. Lastly, we're actively engaged worldwide with regulatory agencies to inform them on what the cloud is, how it works, and how it's impacting and changing for the better the financial industry. You can see that on the right-hand side of the screen in the bottom, that anytime a guideline or a best practice or a new rule or regulation comes out from a regulatory body around the world, we are quick to make sure that we provide either an audit guide or a workbook or guidelines for the use of AWS in relation to these specific pieces of guidance that come from these organizations. Speaking of organizations that we work with specifically from a regulatory perspective in the APAC region or Japan, this is a sampling of organizations in the region that we have helped our customers successfully address regulatory requirements from. We have a similar set of organizations in the US as well as Latin America and EMEA that we've actively engaged with our customers to address regulatory requirements from around the world. So this concludes my prepared remarks for